Okay, so is institutional learning dead? Like most of you, when I heard that question, my thoughts immediately turned to Das Kapital and those sections where Karl Marx writes about the dangers of reification. Right? You weren't there when you heard that question. He warns us about the dangers of reification, and that is the habit that we have of attributing to things and abstractions human qualities, like the ability to learn institutionally, and even indeed the ability to die. Other Marxist scholars have characterized reification or described it as the thingification of social relations. Another very catchy Marxist term that I'm sure you'll all leave with today, and talk about thingification of social relations at dinner tonight. So anyways, Marx's warnings notwithstanding, I do think that it is possible to talk about institutional learning, provided that one bear in mind that institutions are made up of people who make decisions with the assistance of protocol manuals and policies and procedures and historic practices that may at times be open and responsive to changing circumstances and may at times be interested in and willing to come up with creative solutions to problems and to innovate in response to opportunities that present themselves. So with reference to the Borderless Higher Education for Refugees project, or the BHER project, I'd like to talk about two groups of institutions, funding agencies and universities, for whom I hope institutional learning is not dead. As was pointed out in the video, BHER is a consortium of universities and NGOs who are working to provide post-secondary opportunities for people living in protracted refugee situations. And one of the big challenges of this project has been to convince funding agencies and foundations of the value of post-secondary education within the context of a refugee camp. There is an assumption, unfortunately more of a hope than a reality, that for people who have been displaced by war or disaster, who find themselves living in camps, that this situation is temporary. That when the conflict is over, that when the rains come or when the floodwaters recede, people will be able to return to their homes and rebuild their lives. The UNHCR, the Red Cross, CARE, MSF, and other humanitarian organizations are charged with the responsibility of providing shelter, food rations, basic medical assistance to keep people alive temporarily until they can return home and be relocated. When the stay in the camps turns into months and then years, there is usually the realization that something more than this basic emergency assistance is required, and that basic educational needs need to be provided for children in the camps. Most often, this realization and the establishment of schools comes about quite informally as parents or other adults or former teachers begin to hold school under trees or in tents or in conditions that are quite informal. But participation, of kids who are living in those camps, it's an important part of their lives to try to return to some semblance of normalcy. In time, usually international NGOs arrive on the scene, willing to provide more formal educational structures, sometimes with the support of host country governments, but sometimes not. When encampment stretches on and on, 10, 20, 30 years out, it's our contention that something more needs to be done to address the educational needs of these displaced communities. And one of those needs, among other things, is the provision of post-secondary opportunities. Now, as also was mentioned in the video, there are programs now that are currently in place that offer scholarships to exceptional individuals who have grown up in camps and yet managed to demonstrate extraordinarily high levels of academic achievement. There are very few of these kinds of scholarships available. Some enable the students to leave camps and study in host country universities. Others enable students to study abroad and on occasion to relocate. So returning to the question of institutional learning, Funding for education has, for the most part, been allocated to the provision of primary basic education, and in some instances to secondary education in the camps. Our challenge with funders, therefore, has been to convince them that higher education is a worthwhile, indeed a necessary, support for individuals and communities in protracted refugee situations. We have argued that higher education for refugees supports the personal growth and educational aspirations of hundreds of high-achieving and highly motivated individuals who have not had the good fortune of qualifying for scholarships. We have argued that providing opportunities for refugees to study in a number of fields, including education, health, administration, business, community development, and the sciences, increases the capacity of communities to address pressing social, environmental, and economic problems, and improves the quality of life in the camps. And finally, we've argued that the world outside of the camps benefits from the creation of new knowledge that higher education provides, about the experience of forced migration and displacement itself, about notions of globalization, identity, nationhood, belonging, global peace, social and environmental justice. Some funding agencies and institutions have been open to reconsidering their funding priorities and practices. Others not so much. Turning to the question of institutional learning in universities, VHAR is premised on a no tuition for refugees model. And while we accept that universities are not humanitarian organizations or developmental agencies, we also think that that doesn't include participation in international and interinstitutional efforts to contribute to a peaceful, just, and sustainable world. York and the University of British Columbia, Canada, and Kenyatta and more universities in Kenya have seen this project as an opportunity and have shown interest in and willingness to think about alternative funding models and innovative approaches to program delivery. So, is institutional learning dead? Apparently, in Toronto, Vancouver, without Kenya.